We often neglect to reflect on how a team really performed in a draft. We hear people on television argue for 1 to 2 days about a trade, but we rarely follow up to see who actually won a certain trade. In 2017, a head-scratcher trade happened when the Bears jumped up only one spot from third to second overall just to get a quarterback from a team that vocally didn't want one at the time. Today I'll be diving into why the Bears just moved up one spot to get an unproven quarterback. If you guys like this series, let me know, and I'll make more of these because these are really interesting, and I think I'll have some interesting insight. So let's first look at the deal. It includes 2 third-round picks and a 4th-round pick, including 1 third-round pick that the Bears had in 2018, just for the Bears to jump up one spot from third to second in the 2017 draft. But why? The Bears knew that the 49ers didn't want a quarterback. Some speculate that they didn't want another team who needed a quarterback like the Texans or maybe the Chiefs to jump up to second overall and pick their quarterback of the future. So who were these coveted quarterbacks in this draft? Going in, everyone knew this wasn't going to be a strong draft class like we saw last year. It turns out the first 3 quarterbacks were in the Pro Bowl in 2019, so there's that. 2018 wasn't so great for these 3 quarterbacks, but I may get into another video then, but that's not the point of this video. So there were 5 main quarterbacks in everyone's radar in 2017, but according to Fox Sports, these were the general consensus top 5. Number 5, Brad Kaya from Miami, who got picked up by the Lions in the 6th round. Nathan Peterman out of Pittsburgh, who was picked in the 5th round and was known for beating Clemson, eventual college football national champions, the year that he beat them. Deshaun Watson, who was 12th overall and actually won the national championship, but his ability to transfer to the NFL was questioned. Deshaun Kaiser, whose stock fell and was actually dropped to the 4th quarterback overall taken in the draft and 52nd overall. And number 1, Mitch Trubisky, who we're all talking about today, and was generally ranked 1 to 3 in these rankings, with some having Kaiser or Watson ahead of him. And as a small note, as you notice, Patrick Mahomes was 8th on this list, and we didn't see him on the list because he was 8th. And it goes to show you what a year behind a veteran can do, but I digress. If the Bears were going to pick second, they were going to have to pick someone special. Kind of like what the people were saying about the Giants this year. It's not so often you get to pick second overall. Oh, unless you're the Giants, and it seems like every year picking second overall. But anyway, some argue that in order for Mitch Trubisky's pick to be a success, he'll have to play a dozen years and win an MVP and multiple Super Bowls and be one of the best players ever. But why was Trubisky the guy? Looking at his stats with the Tar Heels, it didn't really jump out at anybody, and they weren't really that special. Deshaun Kaiser actually had all the measurements and stereotypes of a franchise quarterback, and Watson was coming off a national championship. There were rumors before the draft that the Bears were actually looking to trade their pick to number 1 overall, taking Myles Garrett as a number 1 pick. I think the Bears offered a trade with the Browns, but they declined, and eventually had to trade with the 49ers. They would have taken their losses if the Browns would have selected Mitch Trubisky at this point. Also, there were rumors that Mahomes would go top 10 and that the Chiefs were looking to move down. Since the Bears were so sold on Mitch Trubisky as their man, they had to make sure no one traded to 2 and snatched him. The 49ers were also looking for a quarterback. After a 2-14 season and Chip Kelly's first and only year as head coach, the 49ers knew they needed a change especially behind center. After all, they had Blaine Gabbert starting for Colin Kaepernick at the beginning of the year, and what didn't make it any better was that there was somewhat of a small kneeling controversy, but that didn't end up too big, so it wasn't really that bad. Things couldn't have gotten worse for them this season, which gave them the 2nd overall pick behind the 1-15 Cleveland Browns, who were just 1 field goal away from becoming the 2nd team in NFL history to not win a game. Could they need a quarterback? That question was actually answered when they picked up journeyman quarterback Brian Hoyer and Matt Barkley while getting rid of their 2 previous starting quarterbacks previously mentioned in the weeks leading up to the draft. Still, general manager John Lynch was quiet about who was going to start at the beginning of the season, and there was still a lot of skepticism of who was going to start in the beginning of the year. As the draft neared, it was clear the 49ers liked Solomon Thomas, defensive end out of Stanford. He was not great, but you could tell the 49ers loved him. He was not Myles Garrett, but many had him just behind him as a top 10 prospect overall. People touted his freakish athleticism and his great play between the tackles and stopping the run. Many thought that you could put him anywhere on the line, and this would be successful for the 49ers in theory. The 49ers were ranked bottom 11 in rushing defense and passing defense, and were bottom 8 in points allowed. Their offense needed help, but their new head coach and quarterback guru, Kyle Shanahan, thought he could make do with Brian Hoyer, a veteran quarterback at the time. At this point, the 49ers were taking calls to any team who might want to have to trade up. With the Texans and the Chiefs expressing interest to move up, I think the Bears were pressured just to make a move and go for the number 2 overall pick. The team knew they needed a franchise guy, and they couldn't risk it. John Fox knew his job was at risk, so he needed this to work now rather than a few years, and he thought they were a quarterback away from winning a few more games than they did in the 2016 season. The Bears only won 3 games in the 2016 season, and they knew they needed a change. Kevin White, a top 10 overall pick in the 2015 draft, wasn't panning out as they thought, and he missed his first 2 seasons due to a leg injury. They tried to sign ex-Giant star and salsa aficionado Victor Cruz, but that didn't pan out either. Things weren't looking too good at the quarterback either, as Jay Cutler failed the physical and they had to cut him, and Brian Hoyer and Matt Barkley got shipped to the 49ers. And that's weird. Why would the 49ers get Matt Barkley and Brian Hoyer as quarterback? Like that. Did Kyle Shanahan think he was that good? I don't get it. What was he thinking? Anyway, in response, the Bears signed all-star quarterbacks Mark Sanchez and Mike Glennon for 1 year and $2 million, and 3 years, $45 million combined. So the quarterback was solved, right? $15 million for Glennon, $2 million for Sanchez. That's all they needed, right? Well, as we found out, it wasn't. So why would they pick up Glennon? And why would they pick him up if they knew they were going to pick a quarterback? Going into the draft, their 3 needs were as follows: 1, safety; 2, wide receiver; 3, defensive end. In a strong defensive line head class, there are names like Jonathan Allen, Derek Barnett, Jamal Adams, and Malik Hooker, all consensus top 10 prospects. The Bears were all set up to pick a defensive back to help John Fox keep his job. He was in need of a breakout season after agreeing to part with Broncos after an unsuccessful 2015 campaign and his first 2016 season at 3-13. Prince Mukamara was signed for $7 million, and when the Jaguars refused to sign him. That was one part of the defensive build that the Bears tried to do. He was a decent player. Knowing him from his Giants days, he wasn't special, and I still think he's overrated, but he'll do. Having a partner at safety would have been ideal for the success of this team, especially a young safety, to build up this defensive core. The Bears also had a cornerback, Marcus Cooper, who ended up winning the starting job with Prince, but never amounted up to anything with the Bears, after he signed a 3-year, $16 million deal, and he didn't end up panning out. They ended up signing also safety Quentin Williams, who broke his arm that season and got released by the Bears thereafter. The Bears also already had Kyle Furler, who really stepped up in 2017 after missing the 2016 season when he replaced Prince and Cooper when they went down for a few games during the year, and was a first-team All-Pro in 2018 on that insane Bears defense. This was the beginning of the build for the Bears' 2018 defense that was top 2 overall in the NFL, and many argue was number 1 overall, and many compared to the 1985 Bears. They also had Tracy Porter, who was eventually released, and a couple other nickelbacks right before the draft, so they were looking to solve defense through free agency. Their defense in 2016 wasn't bad by all means too. They had just the 7th ranked pass attack and 15th overall defense. If they can shore this up, they knew that they could play well in 2017. At the same time, their offense was just as good, ranking 15th overall too. So why Trubisky? Like the saying goes, offense wins games, but defense wins championships. After going 3-13, the Bears just needed to win games for John Fox to stay head coach. How could a 15th ranked overall offense and defense end up with the 3rd worst record in the league? Simple. They needed a quarterback, unlike Jay Cutler, who had no leadership skills, and in 5 games before his injury had a 1-14 record with 4 TDs, 5 interceptions, and just over 200 yards per game. Leading them. Brian Hoyer and Matt Barkley did not do any better with a 1-4 and 1-5 record respectively. And Brian Hoyer is actually the best of the bunch when he went 6 for 0 TDs interceptions with a 60 QBR, a 67 completion percentage, and around 240 yards per game. Heck, he was so good he can replace my Eli on day 1. Matt Barkley had 8 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, and he wasn't that good. Anyway, so the Bears were looking for some stability at the quarterback position. Like I've been mentioning, John Fox wanted to show management that he was building a future championship team. His team needed to win games. So, now we know what each team was thinking going into the draft, what their needs were, what they were thinking. So, what eventually happened? Who won the trade? Well, since this video is pretty long right now, I'm going to separate it into two parts. Next part should be out in a couple days, so look forward to it. Let me know who you think won this trade, and let me know what you think both teams should have done leading into the draft. Let me all know all opinions in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.